So today is lesson 4 of server-side scripting. So today we're mostly going to talk about MVC views. We'll look at some of the syntax. We'll create some new views. We're going to go over the Git and Azure deployment one more time. This is the last time I'm going to walk through it. One little hiccup with my deployment of last week, so I'm basically going to undo it and redo it. And I'm screencasting, I'll record the process, but this is basically the last time I'm going to take up class time walking through that process of how we do it. Okay. So I did make an announcement about a half an hour ago, if anybody didn't see it. You didn't see it because I posted in the wrong class. Awesome. I will have some very confused students. In what class did I put it in? Ah, okay. Well, it's a little late for that announcement. Okay, so we're going to go over views. We're also going to get our SQL Server database set up before the end of class today. If you don't have SQL Server management, well, maybe I better copy this stuff. So you really should have all these things on your machines by now. If you don't have Visual Studio installed by the 4th week of class, I have some serious concerns. So here's everything that you should have all set up by now. I'll email it out so you have the links, but it's on Blackboard. So you need Visual Studio installed in your computer. There's really no excuse for not having it, the software installed. I emailed you guys on August 30th and said, put this on your laptop. It's September 26th. So it's been a month, okay? So if you don't have it at this point, it's up to you to catch up, okay? I can't really spend more time helping you with that. You need the database software, Management Studio, which is available at this link. You need to have a GitHub account, which I asked everybody to have set up last week, if you didn't already. And then you need to register and set up your Azure access. So in order to do that, you do that through our Imagine store. There's the link. You use your student email to create your account. And then you should be able to follow the directions that I posted last week about how to set up Azure if you don't already have it. The links are in this PDF with screenshots step by step. Okay, if you don't have these things set up, you're going to have to catch up on your own time. Okay, I can't really allocate any more class time at this point to it. So to get your Azure code, that link takes you here to the Microsoft Store. You register with your student email if you don't have an account. And then you need this item, this Microsoft Azure for Students. That's going to give you your access code so that you can host your applications on Microsoft's Azure Cloud Service. All right, got set up now? Yep. Good. So at the end of class last week, I tried to deploy my Git repository, but we got this. My deployment failed, so my website just kind of looks like this when I go there. So it has to do with the way I uploaded this to GitHub, so I'm going to redo it. So I got this message from my log. And it has to do with the way we pushed to GitHub and deployed the packages. So I'm going to redo the entire GitHub process again. I'm not going to change my work from last week. All our code is still the same, but I'm going to redo putting it up to Git. Okay. And I'll show you the problem and I'll show you what it should look like. So when you go to my repository right now, this is what you see. You just see inside the project folder. So this causes a problem when we try to connect it directly to Azure this way. And the reason is because I initialized Git in the wrong place. So here was our project from last week. Notice I have a little Git file here. This is inside my web project. I needed to do this one folder up. This little .git folder really should be up here where my git ignore is. So I'm going to delete all traces of my git and I will redo it. So I'm going to go into my project folder. I'm going to delete that little .git folder. I'm also going to delete my little git ignore and I'll redo that one as well. So if you put your files up on GitHub and it looks just like this, well, then you'll need to follow along. What we want it to look like is like this instead. So it should have my solution and the git ignore, and then my project folder here. So I'm going to redo my repository so it matches this. That will solve the package conflict error that I managed to create for myself. So I'm going to open up my project. I'm going to disconnect it from Git, and then I will reconnect it. So I'll open up last week's project. So the mistake that I made was I had my project folder selected when we did all of our GitHub integration. What I really want is I should be at the top level in my solution. So things are happening not just in the web project, but in our main solution folder, one level higher. So first I'm going to go here and I'm going to disconnect my project from Git. So I'll right click my project. My command line's not here. Oops. I better reinstall my little Git extension from last week. I'm not sure where it went. That's okay. It's not very useful, is it? Okay, I'll have to go to my command line another way. Just go into my project in Windows and go into my web project here. So I have the same folder name twice, Music Store, Music Store. And I'll just copy the address and go to my command prompt. So I'll click on my start and type CMD. I'll just change directories and go into my project folder. So the first thing I want to do is disconnect this site from my remote repository. I'm going to redo it. So I'm going to remove my remote called origin. This will deconnect. This is how, if we mess up our Git repository, we can disconnect any local folder from GitHub. With remote RM short for remove the origin. So there's no origin anymore. It's not tied to GitHub. Now I'm going to go back to GitHub. I'm going to delete my repository and then I'll recreate it. If you delete one, you can just go into settings and scroll down into the danger zone. And to delete it, you just type the name back in to confirm, and it'll be gone. And before it deletes, it wants you to enter your password. Which is not a bad idea. So now my repository is gone. Now I'll just recreate it. I'll make a new one with the same name. In settings. On settings and go right down to the bottom, there's a section with the subheading that says danger zone. And it should be the very last item is delete the repository. And then it wants you to just type the name and confirm your password. So I'll recreate an empty repository. And then once again, it shows me all the commands we need to put it up on GitHub again. Before I do, I've got to redo my gitignore file because we don't want all of our packages copied to GitHub. That causes conflict errors when we try and deploy to Azure. So my gitignore file is actually right here. So now when I look back in my, still have my application, but my Git folder's gone, my gitignore file is gone. So we have to redo everything to reconnect it to Git. So the first thing we want is our gitignore file. So I put that up last week on Blackboard. It's inside of Weekly Learning Tools and Resources, and it was that second last item here. So I'll just click on this, and it will ask me, what do you want to open it with? Notepad's fine. Whatever default text editor you have is okay. And then I'm just going to save it into my solution folder. And I'm going to change this where it says save as type. I'm going to change that to all files. Otherwise, it's going to be given a .txt extension, which I don't want. So wherever I can see the solution file, the .sln, that's where we want our gitignore to go. So I'll call it .gitignore, save as type is all files, and I'll just press save. So now my gitignore file's here. So now we basically just have to follow the commands that are on the GitHub website. Can make this a bit bigger. Now, right now, I'm inside of my web project directory. That was my problem last time. I need to go up one directory because I want GitHub in the main solution folder, not just the web project. How do I go up one folder? Change directories, ... That takes me up one folder. No, worked. So now I'm in my solution directory. To make sure I'm in the right place, I can see what's in here. If I use dir, this is basically what's here. I should see the unit testing project, my web project, the packages, gitignore, and the solution. So this is where we want to run our commands. So now I'm basically just going to follow along what GitHub tells me. I'm just going to really make one change. So we'll reinitialize Git with Git init. It says I've got an empty repository. This is the only line we're going to change. Instead of add readme, what are we going to add? Yeah, we want add dot. The dot means add all the files. git add dot. Will add everything. So all of these files are being watched for changes now. This will take a minute to run, that's okay. It's finished, my cursor's flashing. So now we'll make a commit. Again, I'll call it end of lesson 3, which is where it was. That's the current state of the project. We dealt with controllers last week. This is our code, the end of last week's class. So now we just need to add the remote and do a push. The easiest way to do this, I can just copy the URL here and add the remote. Git remote add origin, or you could highlight and paste that whole line. So I'm connecting my local Git repository to my remote one on GitHub. And then my last command is just to push, which will upload all the files. Again, you could just highlight, copy that line, and right-click and paste it in if that's easier. So it should tell us when we're done, and then I should be able to refresh my browser. Okay, so it's done already. I'll just leave that open. We can see the commands because I know it's, okay, so this, now it's correct. This is what I wanted it to look like. So it's in the main solution. We can see the git ignore, but notice the packages haven't been included now. So those were our commands. Initialize it, add all the files, make a commit, connect to the remote repository, and push. So when we make more changes, we only have to do 3 of these steps. We don't have to initialize git again. That was only once. And we don't have to add the remote again. We only had to do that once. So we will just add the files, make a new commit with a different message, and push every time we want to put a new version on GitHub. Now I'm going to check. Hopefully my repository on Azure, it should be set to automatically sync, but I'm logged into Azure. I'm going to manually tell it, try and deploy again now that I've fixed it. So it's asking, do you want to redeploy from GitHub? So I'll say yes, because it's the same repository. We'll see if this fixes our deployment problem. If this deploys properly, we're going to make a change and then try pushing that to GitHub and see if it gets pulled to Azure. So I'm going to leave my command line open. Okay, well, we didn't get a red exclamation mark. We've got a check, which is encouraging. That suggests it worked. I can refresh my site now. If you want to get to the link, if you just click overview, it will give you the link to your site. So because it's pulling a new version, it's going to be slow here for a minute to load the first page. But our site should be online now. Okay, so this is where we left our site last week, right? We added a store link and we put in these values. So I'm going to show you how the continuous deployment feature works now that we've fixed our deployment. Let's go to our project and let's just make a really simple change to it. Down at the bottom in the footer, it says this, my ASP.NET application. So let's just go to our template file and we'll maybe change some of this text and then push our change to GitHub. So all my files are still open from last week. If we want to open out our site template, if yours is closed, it's inside of Views and Shared, this layout file. That's our site template. So we'll open that one up. We made a few changes last week. We changed the title tag. We changed the main link in the nav bar to say MVC Music Store, and we added a link to the store, which we created. So down here on my line 37, I'm going to change this. Instead of saying my ASP.NET application, and call it COMP2084 MVC Music Store. And we'll just save that change. Now, normally I wouldn't commit such a small change to GitHub. Usually I'd actually do some work and make some significant changes. But we want to test out the continuous deployment to see if we now push this to GitHub, will Azure automatically update with the new version? So I'll just go back to my command prompt. Again, we'll add all the files with git space add space dot. And we'll make a new commit. So this is a new version. So start of lesson 4, we change the footer. So I know when we change it and what we did. So it says, okay, there was one file changed. And now we just want to upload this so we can use push from the origin to the master branch. We don't need the -u, only the very first upload we use -u. You can put it in, it won't break anything, not necessary. So this should copy our new layout file up to GitHub, and then hopefully Azure will check for it and display the new version as well. So again, the commands we used, git add dot, you can see right at the top. We made a new commit with a new message, and then we're pushing again from the origin to the master. And my command line tells me this was successful. We can go check. So now if I refresh my repository, so before it said one commit, and the most recent commit said end of lesson 3. If I refresh, we now have 2 commits, and we can see the new change I just pushed that says lesson 4. So I'm just going to leave my Azure panel open for a minute. It should be set up to sync automatically. We'll give it a minute and see. It should be checking every 60 seconds for a new version on GitHub. I'm a bit surprised this hasn't reloaded yet. Let's just see.
Is it automatic or is there a setting?
It should be automatic. I'm surprised it's not updating automatically. We shouldn't have to change anything here. Let's just see. Well, I guess I will manually update it by clicking the sync button. And I'll say yes, I want to get the latest version. So now you notice our previous version is inactive and it tells us the new version is now the active one. So this is useful because now we can go and check our new version. I can refresh it. My footer should change once it takes a minute to rebuild. Our footer down at the bottom should say COMP2084 MVC Music Store, which it does. Now, the good thing is, if we check our changes and suddenly we've broken something, what would we do? So we pushed our change, we check in the browser, and we think, uh-oh, that didn't work. What's the first thing we should do? Can we get the last version back? Yeah, how do we do it? I just click the last version. If I click redeploy, it will disable the newer version and it will put this one back online. So we have this useful rollback feature that all our previous versions at any point, we could go back to one of them while we fix the problem. So this will reduce errors when we're launching new versions. So I'm going to keep my command prompt open. We won't use it again for a while. But when we want to put new changes, for sure at the end of the lesson, I'll add dot, make a new commit, and upload to Git again. So it is a good idea to check when we're deploying to Azure. If we make a new commit, we should check. And if it doesn't upload our change, we just click the sync button and sync it manually to put our new version online. Anybody have questions about how we run our solution and get it up to Azure through GitHub? And what happens exactly?
Just try to reset it. That didn't work out for me, but I did everything again. Just try to deploy the.
You can also try, if you need to, you can delete the site on Azure and recreate it from scratch.
I just disconnected this one.
Okay, that's the first option. Yeah, first is click disconnect. And then you go through the setup again. So you have to add the repository back in. That's a good suggestion to try. If it still doesn't work, click disconnect, and then you click on deployment options and you reconnect it to your GitHub repository. That would be the first thing to try.
That's what I tried and it worked.
Okay, that worked for you? Okay. Other questions? Josh?
Do you know why my home link, like my whole site went up the same way, but for some reason my home link now tries to go to the root of the web application, even though the action link is still the exact same?
Sorry, so when you click home, Where it goes where?
It goes to, like, it doesn't go to like /home index, it just goes to the root, which has like that default, like, here's your, as your application page.
Oh, so it shows you that. What about when you click about and contact?
Yeah, that all works.
That all works. But when you click either of these links, okay. Let's have a look for a minute. Click on application settings for a minute and scroll down into this section that says default documents. Does it look like this? And down where it says virtual applications and directories, it's got the slash. Interesting. I have to think about that. I've never seen that happen before. I wonder what happens actually if you go back to application settings and default documents. That page they call hostingstart.html. I wonder if you delete this from the list, what happens when you try your home link then?
Want to try that?
Yeah,
Okay.
try it.
Okay. Still the same.
Click save. I think you have to click, you may have to click save at the top.
Okay.
Okay. Let me know what happens.
Oh yeah, it's still the same.
It's still bringing that page up.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll maybe have to have a look at it at the break. That's very interesting. Okay. Anybody else? Any other questions? Who has the site loading on Azure? Nobody else does? Okay. Who does not have an Azure account yet? Nobody? Okay, you need to get one.
It's not activity.
Pardon?
It's not activity. It's not getting activity.
Okay, did you go to the store and get your passcode? Okay, so you need this code here, this item in blue. You need to go to the store and register and sign in order to get that code. That is what gives you free access to the server. If you don't have that code, they will ask you to pay. We don't want you to pay, but we want you, you need to use the service, so that code is your key to get in. Okay, so you need that to create your subscription. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a pause here then. Will be a slightly longer break than usual. We'll come back at 3 o'clock. And if you don't have the account set up on Azure, please don't leave the room, because I want to try and come and see as many of your computers as I can before 3 o'clock. Okay, so I'm going to stop the stream.